All right, welcome to the Marriage Boss Podcast. I'm totally pumped up today because I've got a special guest with me who I just recently met through our mutual friend Dennis. Amy Stefanik is a wife, mother, writer, speaker, and with her husband Matt has been on the entrepreneur's journey for the past 14 years. Through her project, The Entrepreneur's Wife, Amy's goal is to inspire, strengthen, and encourage the entrepreneurial family through the concept of one shared vision. She created a community for like-minded, powerful people to share their stories, lend support, and know that they are not alone. We are excited to have her on the show. Amy, welcome to the Marriage Boss Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. Excited to be here.
Good. We got a chance to talk a little bit before the show, and it's amazing how, you told me something that I really never thought about. I know that when I talk to men, we always feel like the men are alone and really not knowing where our next journey is going to lead us. But it's interesting to know that the entrepreneur's wife is, sometimes feels alone and doesn't know that there was any connection. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, how you got into this?
Yeah, absolutely. My husband and I have been together for 14 years. He's always been an entrepreneur. We started very young, the entrepreneurial journey, and just him going through the different businesses, real estate and different, online, different things that he's doing. We really didn't have people around us that were doing the same things that we were doing. Everybody that we knew was very conventional. They had jobs, they had careers. And so I didn't really have anybody that I could connect with and talk to about the struggles of an entrepreneurial family. Because your struggles are different than most people. You have really high highs and you have really low lows. You can, make $500,000 one year and lose everything the next year. And so you never know. And so I didn't have anybody that I could reach out to that my story didn't scare the crap out of them. And so when I found that I was reaching out to people, all they wanted to do was fix me. They wanted to be like, well, just go get a job. Tell them to get a job. Why can't you guys be normal? Like, this isn't normal. Like, what you're doing is so stressful. But I realize now that they were just projecting their fears onto my situation. And so I just felt really alone. Like, no one understood me. Like, I was going through, like, I was abnormal, like, there was nobody that got me and got our situation. And it wasn't until a couple years ago that I started talking to entrepreneurs and their spouses that I realized there's a whole community of people out there that were going through the same things that we were going through. And so I realized there was such a need to kind of create a space for the entrepreneurs and their spouses. And so that's kind of where the Entrepreneur's Wife began, is just creating that environment that the entrepreneur and their spouse can come and they can hear stories and hear interviews and get motivation and feel like they're connected to the right kind of people, because I'm such a strong promoter of having the right type of people around you, especially when you're an entrepreneur, because honestly, you're just so vulnerable. And so when you have the right people, you can grow, and when you have the wrong people around you, it can hurt you. And so,
I'm thinking as you're talking, I remember when we moved to the area we're in now. We're in the metro New York area, so there's certainly a lot of entrepreneurs in and around New York City, but we happen to move to a little place about an hour north of Manhattan, and it's kind of country, and this was like a super corporate enclave that IBM built back in the 70s. So we are surrounded by corporate people. And so there are not as many entrepreneurs where we are, and I can totally relate to what you're saying, because if I walk out into my community on any given day, I'm going to run into a lot of people. They're still very big up here, so they have a couple of big offices. So I can totally relate to what you're saying. So thank God for social media and the ability to connect with people globally, because I would go out of my mind if I was trying to find people like me here. Yeah, and I can totally relate. So I'm thinking back to when Carol and I met, and if someone in the audience today is listening who thinks they might be married to an entrepreneur, what are some of the signs that like that person might be working in a job right now, but then they're kind of thinking about either having a side business, they got their own internet thing going, or some network marketing thing. What are some of the signs that you are in an entrepreneurial marriage?
Well, I think that entrepreneurs usually come by it two ways. They either are they start really young. I mean, even as like kids selling candy out of their locker, they know that they want to have their own thing, or they come in later in life and they have a career and they want to start their own business and they jump in kind of with both feet later on in their life. But I think to answer your question, I mean, if your husband or your spouse is talking to you about, I mean, you kind of know if your spouse wants to kind of lean towards being an entrepreneur. You know, they're talking about starting their own business, but it's the actions behind that talk that kind of lets you know where they stand with, you know, starting their own thing. And I think that's the big thing to answer your question is, what kind of actions are they taking? You know, is it just talk? Is it just dreaming? Or is there a plan behind it? Like, hey, I want to start my own thing. I'm really thinking about this, and this is kind of what I want to do to get this going. If that answers your question.
Yeah, I know there are people out there right now listening to this, and let's talk specifically to the ladies, because you know, I know one of your specialties is, you know, talking to wives about this. So there's a wife out there right now who's watching these little moves that her husband is making. He's either talking about, this happened at work, and you know, like he's getting more down on his regular job, and or saying things like, when I do blank, or when I leave my, you know, I'm not going to another job, or I'm done with offices or companies or bosses. And so she's scared to death right now because she's thinking about, you know, security, stability, the family, the house, the kids, and that kind of thing. So what's the best way to support these crazy risks that, you know, the husbands are taking?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what comes to mind when you say that is that if your husband is really really moving forward with making a plan on taking these risks, you know, investing money into his own business or leaving his job to start something, the best thing that you can do as an entrepreneur's or wife is to create a space and look at them and say, I believe in you. Even though you might be thinking in the back of your head, oh my God, how are we going to pay our bills?
Yep.
We have kids. What are we going to do? Because it is important for a woman, I think, and I see that at that thread of common common connection between women is that they do want security. But when you're in an entrepreneurial marriage, you have to find your footing in a new way. You have to create a different type of security, and you have to find your security in other places than a 9-to-5 job. And so the biggest thing that you can do for your spouse is kind of take the me out of the equation and say, you know what, I believe in you, because that's truly going to grow them, because there's so many critics out there. They hear it, you know, they go and tell their friends, their brothers, their mom, their dad, anybody, I want to start my own business. They're going to get naysayers. The last thing they need is to come home to their safe place and tell you, and then you say, what if? Yeah. You know, they get that from the outside world. And so the biggest thing that you can do for the entrepreneur is to have that belief, to breathe belief into them, because that's truly what they need, especially in the beginning.
Well, you know, I believe what you're saying 100%, and this is kind of like the most important thing. And as I mentioned to you earlier, when I came home that first day, Carol had a big sign, welcome home, you know, and she was behind me 100%, and I didn't even have a job at the time. So, but I just think that there are so many people out there who are afraid, and I think what I will add to what you said is, if you're not supportive of a spouse who really needs to make this journey, you have to make a decision. If they're going to stay in a job and they're going to do what they don't want to do for the rest of their life, you're not going to get 100% out of that person. So your husband or your partner is really kind of dying. You know, they're the walking dead. If somebody told me I had to go and work in a job and I had to do that because I had to pay bills and stuff like that, I would be miserable. And so you have to ask yourself, if you're listening to this show today, if you are in a relationship that is unhappy or something's wrong or your spouse is disconnected because they don't like the work that they do, you should be listening to Amy right now and inquire within and see if maybe they want to do something different and they're just afraid to come out with it because they don't think they're going to have your support. So 100% I agree, and that was literally, and still is to this day, the number one reason that I'm able to do what I do is because Carol believes in me. And you know what? I don't care what anybody else says. As long as she's in on this, I mean, it's her and I that are doing this.
Yeah.
So I agree 100%. Excellent point. So how can you tell if your man or partner really has what it takes to make it in this entrepreneurial lifestyle?
I mean, it goes right back to what I was saying before about actions, because how you have to look at not just the business side of him. You have to look at overall how he acts in life. You know, is he a go-getter? Does he, you know, how does he handle problems? Like, what does he do when things happen that, you know, issues arise? Like, how does he handle that? Does he sit with it for 2 or 3 weeks and say he wants to quit and kick it around? Or does he sit with it and then say, okay, you know what, I'm moving on. We can do this. Let's go. You know, how is he in other aspects of his life? Because I don't personally believe that everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I think that it takes a certain kind of person. It takes a certain kind of crazy to be able to live in this whirlwind, because every day changes. And so not everybody's cut out for that, and that is completely okay. But if you're looking at your spouse and you're thinking, is he going to make it? Is this going to, you know, is he cut out for this? I mean, you have to look at other aspects of his life, like how does he control and how does he react to other things in his life?
Yeah. You know, you're totally right about this difference and all these differences that we're made up of. You know, I love the word crazy. I think you have to be crazy to do this, and I just feel like we don't have another choice. You know, we can't really do things the way other people do them, and as this movement grows and as we meet, certainly, you know, you and I know how many millions of entrepreneurs there are out there. So we are a force to be reckoned with. We are not abnormal, although we're different, and I think that we're going to become the new normal. Because every day I meet people who say, you know, how do you do what you do, and why are you able to have this kind of freedom and really make decisions that I can't make in my own life? And so more and more people want to do it. And you know, there's so much information out there, and so much there's so many plans and blueprints now that you can see. If you really feel like you want to give it a shot, you can do it. And I think that you know, again, going back to the support, if you have the support of your partner, I mean, pretty much you can do anything. I think it might be harder for certain people, but you know, you really got to have the courage to follow your dreams. And so tell us a little bit about you know, what you do to support you know, entrepreneurs and their spouses.
The biggest thing that I do is I try to create a place where they can tell their story, because I look at it and I've been told I'm kind of pulling back the curtain on the entrepreneur's family, because you hear a lot about like the highs, like I'm here, I'm successful, you know, I have the cars, I have the house, but you don't really see the behind the scenes type of, you know, what it took to get there, you know, what the family went through. And so sitting down with the wife and the husband and hearing their journey and seeing them interact with each other and remember things that's happened, and putting that to and recording it and putting out in the world, it kind of gives a little bit of rawness to the community. And so many people have reached out and been like, oh my gosh, you know, I've gone through that. That was great. You know, I can completely relate to them. And there's so many different types of entrepreneurs. And so gathering stories from everybody and hearing, I mean, some people haven't had any struggles. I mean, it's rare, but there are entrepreneurs that started out, they were successful, and they've never really had a hiccup. Yeah. But, you know, it's taking the stories and the motivation and the success of other entrepreneurs and my husband and myself, and putting it out there for the world to see, which it's a vulnerable thing, because no one wants to tell you, you know, we were on the verge of a divorce. It got really hard for us. No one really wants to to say that, because you want to say my wife or my husband's always been supportive. They've always been here for me. Everything's great. We've been great, But in an entrepreneur marriage, there are times there are many times that you have to make that commitment. Like, I'm sticking this out, especially when things are tough. Yeah. Because when things are going great, it's like, you told me it was going to be like this. My husband laughs all the time because he's like, we're living in times that we dreamed about 10 years ago. Yeah. And so it's just making that mental commitment and sharing that. Like, that's what I feel like I'm doing with the Entrepreneur's Wife, is I'm sharing the stories and the feelings and the emotions of other entrepreneurs, so that the wives, the spouses can see it, everything's okay. You're not abnormal. Like, your situation's not abnormal. And just kind of making it a safe environment. Yeah,
I think that's so important. And, I saw one of your videos with a couple that I thought was terrific. Michelle and Simon's video, they are just incredible, and you were terrific in that video. So if people want to connect with you, they can go to your website?
Yeah, amystefanik.com. I have a contact page. You can go on there, you can send me an email, you can contact me directly through Facebook, on my page on Facebook, The Entrepreneur's Wife. But I try to be super responsive, so you can reach out to me in the different social media outlets, and
Cool. Yeah, I love what you're doing. I think that it's so important. Like I said, I never would have thought that women, and wives would have needed, so much support in this. I just thought that, it was the guys that were really feeling alone and confused and stressed and struggling about this. But I'm comforted to know that you are out there, and I'm excited that we got a chance to talk today. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely.
We'll put all the goodies and your links in the show notes. And
absolutely.
It was great to talk to you. Thanks for coming on.
You too. Thank you.